The pole barn was permitted and constructed on my property over 2 years ago. I then learned there's been an additional request yesterday for information regarding if the concrete slab under the pole barn violates the permeable surface ordinance for the size of my property. My home, which was constructed by my grandfather in the 1940s, is not built on a concrete slab. It allows for the flow and drainage of water underneath it, and it does not count against permeable surface. I've attached a letter of description which offers the opinion that I have not violated any ordinance regarding stormwater or permeable surface in relation to the size of the lot on which my house is erected. I apologize to you, the public, and to the Commission for the length of this statement, but after reading in the public records request I received that Commissioner Russell had made a similar request of Commissioner Tender in regard to building permits obtained as she rebuilt her restaurant after the storm. I find it difficult to believe that these requests are based on information which has been forwarded to Commissioner Russell or from residents calling him and complaining about this mayor. The neighbors and residents I have served over the last 4 years have had no problem ever complaining directly to me in the past, and I have no doubt that if they are unhappy with something I'm doing or not doing, they will let me know, as they always do, either on social media or by calling me on my listed cell phone number. They won't need to rely on Commissioner Russell or anyone else to speak for them. I received a great deal of national media publicity and public accolades regarding my leadership in the first 20 days after the storm when I was the head of the government of this city of Lynn Haven. I made difficult decisions. I made some officials angry as I fought hard for the residents of this town. I made others angry just because I was a woman, not afraid to speak her mind and to challenge decisions with which they disagreed. But I led this city through the most difficult time it has faced in history, and I will continue to lead until the residents here tell me they're ready for new leadership. Thank you very much for your patience. And with that, I'll move on to the Commissioner's report. I'll start with Commissioner Tender.
Thank you, Mayor. This last couple of weeks, I've been dealing with residents on a few different issues, and they certainly are varied, I have to say. I received a visit, and I followed up with this gentleman regarding golf carts being driven by young children. As many of you know, you are supposed to have you can be 14 with a licensed driver on the golf cart with you. He says there's a problem, and he knows the kids are like 10 and 11. He says he's reported it, but I personally, I love my golf cart, and you'll see me all over in it too. And I just feel that we don't want to lose children, but at that age, they don't understand the rules of the road. They don't understand they've got to stop at a stop sign. And especially in that area, by general dynamics, those employees are in a hurry getting back and forth to work. So I encourage all parents, and children are going to be children. Mom and dad are going to leave, and they're going to grab the keys to the golf cart and go have a ride while their parents are gone. But we really want to protect our kids. So I just wanted to bring that forward. The other issue, and I dealt with this right before I came, I've talked to Bobby about this earlier. At 3250 Country Club Road or Avenue or whatever it is right inside there, Bobby explained to me that the Gulf Power had been out there and shot something off, created a hole in the road. Well, the lady that her house is right where they came out, where the hole was, Gulf Asphalt came out, filled the hole, filled it with dirt, filled it with gravel, and now she has a huge bump in front of her yard. And she says, we've got to get it leveled out. It's creating a huge reservoir of water right there, and everybody's driving through, and it's all going in her yard. And so I told her I would bring that to the commission as well. If we can do anything about that, I'd appreciate it, Bobby. This was interesting. I had a gentleman walk in the cafe last week, and he walked right up to me, and he said, Commissioner Tender, I'm here to tell you that the ladies' restroom at Sheffield Park is locked. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'll take care of that right away. And then he turned around and he walked out. So with that being said, I called Vicki Gaynor, and she explained to me that we've had a few problems with people sleeping in there overnight, so we're keeping it locked at night, and then our officers are locking it and unlocking it. Thank you. So we are trying to stay on top of that situation. And that gentleman's been back in. I was going to tease him and ask him why he was trying to get into the ladies' restroom, but I know he does. I know he's not homeless. And other than that, the restroom. I've dealt with this, and I know one of the residents is going to talk about it in a little while, as far as code enforcement and form letters and things of that nature. I've received a couple of complaints about that. We have to get our city cleaned up, and we are obligated to make that happen for everybody that lives here. And unfortunately, there will always be somebody on the downside of that situation, having to fix their home, replace things and things of that nature. But I feel, as a commissioner, I feel that we've got to be proactive and customer service oriented. We must think of the perception of our residents when we're dealing with them, when their world is totally different than ours, and the girls in the office have 15 people lined up. We've just got to change something about how we're dealing with it, because we're offending our own residents by the way we're dealing with code enforcement issues. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tender. Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a busy week, but before I get to that, I would like to state that I appreciate the mayor answering those requests that I had. Obviously, I wouldn't know about those without the complaints that I received. I mean, I'm not sure how I would know about a building permit that had been pulled or not pulled. But the fact that she answered that in a public format should put this to bed to rest. I'm hoping I won't get any more phone calls about any of this stuff now. Maybe we can move forward. And I'm apologize to the mayor if I have offended her in doing this, but that's my job. Citizens ask me a question, I'm going to look into it. Doesn't matter whether it's her or me or you, I'm going to look into what the problem is and see if I can find an answer. She has answered all of these, so hopefully this will put this to bed to rest. As far as the rest of what I've done this week, I went to a community service board meeting and got to meet with those gentlemen and listen to their problems that they've got with their committees. I went to the Census Long-Term Recovery Task Force meeting and was not really happy with what we learned. Again, the census gentleman is telling us that where you sleep April 1st, that's where you're counted. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If our numbers come back really bad, their suggestion is we pay for a recount. I pushed them really hard on that issue and couldn't get anywhere with them. I mean, I questioned whether that if we could prove that their numbers were wrong, at what threshold would they be willing to do the recount and pay for it themselves? They never would give me a straight answer on that, unfortunately. And I don't recommend not telling the truth on these forms. You've got to tell them the truth. And if you are not in Lynn Haven on April 1st, you need to tell them that. But I think it's ridiculous that if your house is destroyed and you're displaced and you're rebuilding, that you can't be considered a Lynn Haven resident. That's not doing us any justice. And that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The city as a whole, the employees and the commissioners, the acting city manager, I've really seen everybody, since I've been here for 4 months, pull together more and more. I'm seeing more and more positive news coming out of our meetings. I'm seeing more and more progress take place. I think we're doing a great job as a community. It's not a pat on our back, it's a pat on our back that we are getting through this situation and that we're doing a good job at it, to be quite honest, and in my opinion. One of the calls that I have been getting is about the lights, and I would like to see if we could get staff to look at possibly where the bus drop-off and pickups are, and maybe look at some lights for these main areas before the time changes. I think that's a concern for a lot of parents with, my road, for example, with all those street lights out, it's dark. I mean, it really is. So I'd like for us to look at seeing some light bulbs to make sure our children are taken care of. But we're continuing to look out and work for you guys, and thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. And if I could just tag on to what you just said about lighting, my husband is a retired electrical contractor, and he's been doing some research for us about lighting on the walking bridge, the Old Bailey Bridge, as well as what you were just talking about. And he's found a really great alternative. I've been discussing it with city manager. They're solar-powered lights. They just clip onto the existing poles. The price is very inexpensive and very cost-efficient. And just by getting someone, maybe one of our local electrical companies, the first one I think of is Jerry Pybus. Jerry Pybus, if you're listening, maybe they would donate a bucket truck and we could purchase some of these, and it would be 19 of those to go on the Bailey Bridge, and then we could find some of these poles that you're near the school stops. So he should have those prices for us by the end of the week. So I'll be telling that to city manager. Maybe we could use that with your idea as well. Okay, that's great. Commissioner, was that all you had, Commissioner Aldridge? Commissioner Perno?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much to say other than Commissioner Tinder and I must have been speaking to the same person, because I had talked to Ricky Ramey after the last meeting about the same issue in the same area with the golf carts and the younger people. And I think Ricky was going to work on and watching out for it over there. I'd just like to tell citizens of Lynn Haven that, with all this rain we're having and the structural flooding and street flooding, and my heart's going out to you. And I know we're not done yet, but I've seen some pretty clean ditches here recently, and I was just telling the mayor that I looked all through the back of Mowat, all the way around that Bel Air area, and they're making progress, and it's a credit to you, Mayor, because I know that was your platform about stormwater. You told me directly, and to see it coming to fruition right now. I know the problem's not solved, but it's getting addressed for the first time in a long time. And I know I appreciate it. It's a long road. Will it cure the problem? It's going to put a dent in it. I know that. I'd like to thank our city employees and our department heads for what they do in these times, in these situations, because they don't stop when the bell rings to be done. They keep going, and they address these issues, and it's a credit to them. So I just want to say thank you, and that's my report.
I think that's a great thank you, but I would say that the NRCS grant that we're getting with the heavy equipment in those large waterways is what's happening with that, so we'll have to give credit for that. But we're getting reimbursed for that project by 75%, which will be great for the city. But also the staff is starting to move in a different direction about thinking about a weekly sort of ditch maintenance project that will really keep this moving along. It's something we've been talking about for a long time, and I'd like to give credit to Acting City Manager Gaynor. She's been very proactive. The last two city managers, I have been on them and talking to them about let's get a ditch maintenance program going so that we can get on hold of this. Mr. Baker needs more people. If we need to get 20 workers that do nothing but that year round, whatever we need to do part-time, and Ms. Gaynor is very proactive about that. So I'm very thankful to Pat, and I think we are, Commissioner Perno, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to compliment Commissioner Perno and our city manager and the other commissioners. We had a very special day, a tailgate luncheon party for our city employees, just to thank them for all the wonderful things that they have done over the past months. And I just wanted to thank Commissioner Perno. He was very proactive and kind to make donations. He has the business, of course, Beef O'Brady's, and he brought a lot of their games and food and really helped the employees to have a good time. So thank you so much for your generosity in doing that. That was great. Is there anyone else from the commission that had anything else they wanted to say? Okay, at this time, we'll move on to the acting city manager's report. Ms. Gaynor.
Thank you, Mayor. We've been really busy these past couple of weeks. Commissioner Aldridge and I met with Panhandle Engineering about the beautification on 77. It's going to be looking really good once we finish that. I've been working with the Public Works Director on some stormwater issues. Of course, when it rains that we get lots of phone calls, but I have to commend the city employees again. They are out there in the rain and storm, early, late, working for the citizens of Lynn Haven. Those issues are going to be solved. We do have some money in the budget this year to solve some of the issues, but we're also waiting for a grant that's going to come through. So we are very, very positive about the future outlook of stormwater issues. Ben Jenke and I met with, we've been talking about another grant that the city would like to pursue. It's called the US EDA grant. And we're going to give you a little bit more details in the coming weeks about this grant. But this grant is an 80-20 match, and I think it would be good for the city. But we're in the preliminary stages where we're putting together some of the application, and we'll bring it back to the commission. We did and we do meet with NRCS. This is the organization that approved us to have the grant to clean out the waterways and the ditches. This program is going really well. We have about 8 trucks that are out. To date, I think we pulled about 29,000 cubic yards of debris out of the ditches. And if you look around the city, you can see that there's clearly a difference. Even when it did rain last week and even this week, we can see a flow that's going much, much better. It is a lot of time spent with Public Works Director in terms of him doing a lot of the paperwork to make sure that the city will be reimbursed, but it's all going to be worth it in the end. So I want to thank our staff for that. We also attended the census meeting, and I concur with Commissioner Russell. We have a long road ahead of us with this census. I am hoping that in the next couple of months that we can partner with more municipalities and really put together a good marketing campaign for people to really respond to the census. It's going to be so important. This is going to be the biggest census that we've ever done because we will need to count everyone that's here in Lynn Haven. So if someone is somewhere else when the census begins, we cannot count those folks. They have to be here in Lynn Haven and a Lynn Haven household for them to be counted. There are a couple of dates coming up. September 11th, we have the Remembrance, and we'll also have some pinnings that will take place. October 10th, the mayor's talked some about that, and then we'll have our trunk or treat that will be October 31st again this year. So those are some really great dates we're working on. Our marketing team is working to pull those together. We are still doing a couple of restructuring within the building and permitting department. We recognize that there are some issues with answering the phone and getting things back, getting permits, inspections out quick enough. But we do have Mike Gordon, who's doing an excellent job of trying to get to some of the backlog that he inherited when he took over. And then we also have added another person to answer the phone, answer your emails, and we're hoping that this will slow down and then we will be able to attend to our citizens and residents a little bit more. Lastly, Ben and I met with the new company. I think just before the storm, they moved in as ACMT, and the owner is Michael Polo. He is the one that took over, I think, the old Honeywell building. Has a lot of great ideas. He has really planted himself in this community. He actually talked about when we had the October 31st trunk or treat last year. He was actually here. He hadn't been here very long and had set up a booth. And then Ben and I both said, well, we didn't know he was here, but we thought that was pretty neat that he even did that. They are doing a lot of work themselves at this building, and they are excited that they're going to bring at least about 150 jobs to the city of Lynn Haven. So we're excited about that. There are many great things to come. And lastly, we continue to meet with FEMA and Tetra Tech to make sure that the city is getting the reimbursements that they deserve and make sure we stay on track with the rebuild and recovery of City of Lynn Haven. And Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you. And with the indulgence of the commission, I need to back up just a moment. We did have a request today. This is an item that is actionable. If I could just make it part of the mayor's report. And in the process of the construction that's going on over on Colorado Avenue to help with the drainage, a pipe collapsed and it's crushed and they really can't go forward. It's flooding. It's really an emergency situation. And I need a motion to authorize the acting city manager, if the commission believes that this is the thing to do, for $29,335 for the purchase of this pipe. If we could have a motion to allow her to do this so that we can get this fixed and stop that flooding issue over there on the street.
So moved.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There appears to be none. Is there any discussion from the public or objection? There appears to be none. Ms. Gaynor, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so hopefully relief coming soon to Colorado Avenue. Moving on to item number 6, the city attorney's report.
No report at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 7 is public commentary. At our meetings, we offer this at the beginning of the meeting so that if you have something you'd like to address the commission and then not have to stay for the whole time, you could do that in a timely manner. We also offer the opportunity to speak on any of the items as we go through the agenda as well. So if there's anyone who would like to speak on any topic that is going to be discussed tonight or any other topic, I invite you to approach the microphone at this time. There's one on either side of the room.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Sheffield. My home is 1508 Wisconsin Avenue, Lynn Haven, but I live at 1303 Maryland Avenue, which is Lynn Haven also. So I'll be counted on the census. As I was looking over the agenda, I don't see what I want to see. So I guess this is the time for me to say what I have to say.
On any topic, ma'am.
I know the procedure for electing or nominating and what has to be done for a city manager, because I know that the mayor and the commissioners, that's your thing. I know what the city manager does, and that is that she or he hires the employees of the city. I have watched the interim or acting city manager in some of these meetings, and especially the night when she gave the report or the state of the city report. And boy, was I impressed. Now, I know that there are many people, individuals everywhere who wants that job. Because if I hadn't retired a long time ago, I might apply for it myself. But I've lived here in the city of Lynn Haven for 77 years. And don't I look good, y'all? Okay. That's beside the point. That young lady right there, I've known for a long time. And when I watched and listened to her give that State of the City report, as the acting city manager then, I saw her qualifications that I knew she had all of that time. I saw her certifications, and I saw how articulate she is. And you know, when you got somebody representing you, You want them to sound good, act good, and know what they're talking about. I don't know when that's coming up, that you're going to vote on somebody to be the city manager of this city. And I just told you, I've been here 77 years. I've served as a commissioner, I've served as mayor, and I have never in my life been prouder or more proud of a city than I am of Lynn Haven. And to tell you just how much I recognized a long time ago how people loved me. It's when my 16-year-old son died and the city of Lynn Haven just wrapped their arms around me. Do the right thing. And I know there are going to be so many qualified people coming, but none of them you know, because you worked with this young woman. So I'm asking you to search your hearts, search your minds, and ask God to lead you. And when it comes time for you to vote for the city manager of this great city, and we used to call it the Magic City. And y'all know, those of you who've been here a long time know that's what we called ourselves, the Magic City. Not a big city, but a magic city, because we love each other and want the best for the city, the great city of Lynn Haven. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight? Thank you, Mayor.
James Dean, 1103 Michigan Avenue. I like Lynn Haven too. I moved to Georgia some years ago and we looked for a town that was just like Lynn Haven. We found it and we lived there. My dad died in 1997. I came back in 2004 and my life hasn't been the same since. I wish I could say it was for the good, but it's not. I thought you had to be a politician to find out things that you didn't know about yourself. But in the last few months, I've been finding out things about myself I didn't know. I've got derelict cars on my property. I've got derelict houses on my property. And I have 14 days to rectify the situation, and I'm not sure where they are. And I thought my house would be fixed in 3 or 4 months. Well, it's 10 months now. Nothing's been done. I've got storage units in my yard, and I'm told that I need to move them. The furniture is in them. I can't move them back in the house because that's where the contractor wants to do the repair. So I think if you could talk to code enforcement and get a little bit of sympathy there, I would appreciate it. The other thing is rainwater. I've lived here, we moved here in February of 1956. Throughout the 20th century, there was no drainage problem here. I moved back in 2004, and there's been a drainage problem ever since. During the time that my dad died and I came back, a ditch was dug around our house, a moat. It's an eyesore. It hasn't helped the drainage at all. Each time, like today, when I look out in my yard, I'm thankful that the tax collector has not seen it because he would raise my taxes for having waterfront property. Thank you.
Mr. Dean, thank you. If you will make an appointment with the city manager. I'm sure that she can discuss with you the code enforcement issues. We had said a couple meetings back that there will, of course, be individual differences and circumstances when your house has not even, been worked on. The contractors are hard to find, and I'm sure that they can reach some sort of compromise. So please call. Thank you, Mr. Dean. Is there anyone else?
I'm over here.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I didn't see you over there.
I'm one of them short people.
They're going to help you lower it a little bit, I think, Evgenia, if you don't mind. Thank you. I don't have a timer in front of me, and I'm certainly not going to cut anyone off, but if you'll kind of pay attention to the 3-minute limit, and so there seems to be a lot of people who are wanting to speak, but I'm certainly not going to cut you off if you've got something prepared, okay?
Okay. My name is Chantrella Knox. I live at 611 Crystal Lane in Lynn Haven. I've been in Lynn Haven since 1997 when I purchased my home. I also have a complaint with code enforcement. I have another property in Lynn Haven, and I received a letter about the, I think it's PPDS or RS program. Filled out the paperwork. So when I contacted the lady, she said that they're waiting on FEMA. And I spoke with Eric in code enforcement and let him know that. But he still sent the letter. So it's a little bit harassing, and I would assume everyone else who got letters would feel that way. To have that letter come to you, and he told me that even though the program said it's City of Lynn Haven working with them, that he could not find out any information about it, that he doesn't know what's going on with it, kind of like whatever. So, and that's kind of the response I got. And then when I explained to you that I turned this paperwork in, and you know, we're the city and we're doing money, but each one of these letters is $7.35. So if you already know what the situation is with my property, this is a waste. And also to tag on to the stormwater, I've been, like I said, in Lynn Haven since '97. I have a easement behind my home, and we're asked to be patient with the easements being cut. Well, the easement is almost as tall as the fence is now. Hasn't been cut since Hurricane Michael. I left a message or sent an email to him because now code enforcement doesn't have a phone. You have to respond to them through email or send a letter. So it's not an effective way to communicate with them. I did that on the 23rd. I haven't heard anything from them. So my frustration is not as much as some other people's, but if everybody else is getting the same information that I'm getting, and the response I get when you call about the easement is, you have to take a little time with us, we don't have the equipment to cut, the small tractors to cut that. Well, I've been getting that same answer since '97. So at some point, we should have bought something small enough to go down the easements. And, you know, that's my only gripes, I would say. But
So are you saying you did not have a telephone number to call to speak to someone regarding the code enforcement? Is that what you're saying?
right, when I called the 2121, I think it is, she told me that code enforcement did not have a phone. And when you look at the letters do not list a phone, they list the email address only.
Okay, I would make this suggestion, and I'll let Ms. Gaynor chime in with me, but if you would call Ms. Gaynor, and maybe we can make an appointment for you to come in and discuss this. And as we said in the beginning of the meeting, code enforcement is going to be an unpleasant thing right now because I had made a statement in the beginning that we wouldn't even start code enforcement for 6 months just to give people time to catch their breaths. But none of us anticipated that it would take sometimes 10 to 11 months to even get a contractor in our homes to start working. So there are going to be exceptions. There's going to be mitigating circumstances. And I think you'll find the city staff to be reasonable and helpful if you'll give a call and make an appointment. And
Yes.
Ms. Gaynor, you want to chime in on that?
Please give me your name again.
Chantrella, CHANTRELLA, and last name is KNOX.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I
Ms.
just say
Richard?
something, Mayor?
Yes, this is Amanda Richard, who is our city planner.
I get code enforcement calls. I don't know who gave that information to the lady, But if someone calls the 265-2121 number and they want to get a message to code enforcement, they're out in their vehicles most of the time. If they ask for me, they can give me the message and I will contact code enforcement immediately to call them back. That's
Okay.
what I've been doing. So I'm sorry, I don't know who it was that gave the lady that information.
So if you could not hear that, if you're calling the service center, you need help over a code enforcement issue, you should ask for Amanda Richard, and she will take your message and make sure that the code enforcement officers have it or direct you to someone else to help you with the issue. Thank you very much. Yes, Mrs. Walker?
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I live across the street from Mr. Dean. His address is 1103. They were kind enough, Mr. and Mrs. Dean were kind enough to share their letter that they received from code enforcement. And again, I lived there for 18 years. In 18 years, I have never, ever seen a junked motor vehicle, and that is quoted from the letter that they received, a junked motor vehicle, never. And it also states that there is an unfit, safe structure. I walked around the property the other day, inside, or in the backyard that you can't see from the street. There is not an unfit, unsafe structure. So it's mind-boggling to me that these folks are getting these letters from code enforcement and they don't seem to be correct. When I read the letter, I thought immediately of another neighbor on our street that does have junked motor vehicles, unfit, safe structures, and I thought possibly that this letter was meant for her. I visited her, and she said, no, this letter was not for her. She received her own letter stating similar but more things wrong with the property. So it just is upsetting to me that neighbors who will work so hard on their property are getting these types of letters, and it shouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you for advocating for your neighbor. And I know that our city attorney has been working with code enforcement with some training over the ordinances and in the ways to respond. And I know that the department is trying very hard to improve. And this input that you're giving tonight will be helpful to let us know in what direction to go next to make this work better. So thank you so much for speaking up. Is there anyone else? Yes.
I am Bob Schultz. I live at 509 Pennsylvania Avenue, the street of the presidents, Avenue of the Presidents. Can you give me, give the citizens of Lynn Haven a status report on the search for a city manager and why it's taken so long?
I can start that for you, and then maybe our city attorney can help me with that. I know that at this point in time that they are doing background checks before they proceed. So Mr. Albritton, would you like to comment?
At the last meeting we had with the commissioners and the public, the commission narrowed down the applicant pool. Thereafter, I had to obtain releases to perform the background checks, meaning those individuals that applied and were selected had to sign a release saying that the city of Lynn Haven could perform that background. Thereafter, on Friday of last week, I provided those signed releases as well as all other documentation to Chief Ricky Ramey, and Mr. Ramey, I presume, is undertaking the background check process. So that's where we stand.
Chief Ramey, do you want to comment on where you are with that? Still in the beginning phases. Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes.
Charlotte Marshall, 1303 Maryland Avenue. Is Ms. Gaynor included on that list? Very good. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Darrell Hooks, pastor of Allen Chapel, AME Church, 1318 Mississippi Avenue. I was somewhat concerned when the meeting started that the mayor had to respond to a letter of such. My first meeting, so I want to say that. I was assigned to Allen Chapel September of last year. Michael came to visit us in October of last year. So I was there a good whole 30 days. I need to be here more often. I know that, but I've been out and about. But I will do my best to get here. They didn't put the time on you, but they put it on me. Okay. When the meeting started, I'll be honest with you, I got somewhat concerned to listen to the dialogue and listen to the mayor and had to respond to that. Then I sort of got at ease when you responded and basically how you apologized to the mayor. And I said, you know what, this may be a decent board. It may have some truthfulness and some validity to it. I served in the military for 10 years and I was company commander, and I had 259 soldiers. And I had soldiers of male and female, black and white, Hispanics, Native Americans. And it was a great big melting pot. As opposed to the search for a city manager, I would like to continue to have the city that I live in reflect that great big melting pot. Councilman Perno, I don't know what your nationality is, but when I see female, I see white males, and I see young lady of color. And then I say, this is a melting pot. This is what is inclusive. And I pray to God that Sister Gaynor is reflected into that search for city manager, because for her to be there right now, it has to take some dealings from the city. I don't know how evaluations go for the city, but if she wasn't doing a fine job, she probably would have been dismissed, because just like we vote folks in, we can vote folks out. So if that's the case, I'm going to assume with my 1 year here, in October be September be 1 year next month, but with my 1 year here, that Sister Gaynor is doing an outstanding job for the city. And when anybody go to work, they look for the rewards of their performance and upper mobility. She's no different than anybody else. So if she's doing the job that obviously she must be doing, because she probably can pull out evaluations that say that she either is or she's not, my vote as a member of the community at large is that we give the nod to Sister Gaynor. And I know the chief has to do his background check, and I know she's gonna pass that background check with raving reviews. And so the pastor says, Sister Gaynor is my choice. Amen.
Thank you for coming out, sir. And welcome to Lynn Haven. Sorry, Hurricane Michael greeted you so quickly. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? So that will bring us to the close of public commentary. Thank you very much. Moving on to number 8, which is our consent agenda. We only have one item tonight. This is the minutes, the approval for the August 13th regular meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of those minutes? Any questions from the public? There appears to be none. Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the minutes stand approved. Old business number 9 is the second reading of ordinance number 1079. This is the voluntary contraction de-annexation 19-01, parcel ID number 11823-012-000, Highway 389. This is a public hearing when the public is allowed to speak on this topic. The time for the opening is 6:55 Central Time. Ms. Richard, our city planner, has a report.
This is an application from DD's Investments, Inc. for a voluntary contraction, otherwise known as a de-annexation. Ordinance number 1079, and this is the final reading of the ordinance and public hearing. The applicant owns a parcel of property within the city limits of Lynn Haven, parcel ID 11823-012-000, located on the east side of Highway 389, across from the entrance to Sarasota Avenue. The applicant is requesting to be able to contract this parcel out of the city boundaries of Lynn Haven. The property is approximately 6.1 acres in size and is contiguous to parcels in unincorporated Bay County on the west, east, and south sides. The owners also own property across the road from this parcel, which is currently in unincorporated Bay County. The applicant owns a business on the other property and wishes to expand it onto this property, but the city is unable to provide potable water or sewer to the property. There have been no phone calls or inquiries regarding this possible contraction from the public, other than 2 people that came to the planning board meeting. The item went before the Planning Commission on August 8, 2018, where there were 2 members of the public who spoke out against it, having concerns about the property being developed. One of the people owned the property, which is in unincorporated Bay County and lies adjacent to the parcel to be contracted. The other person lives on Inverness Road. The planning board recommended approval of the contraction. Just to give a little bit more information, if someone wants to annex into the city, there are certain criteria per statutes, Florida statutes, that need to be met. The property has to be contiguous to property within the city, and there also need to be services, infrastructure available to that property. Contractions are not something that are easily granted. In order to be able to ask for a contraction and have a contraction, you have to show that one of those things isn't being met. And in this instance, the city cannot provide water and sewer. There's no water and sewer adjacent to the property for them to use. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. And then, Ms. Gaynor, are you ready to read the ordinance?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
An ordinance contracting from the municipal limits of the city of Lynn Haven, Florida, a certain parcel of land lying on the east side of Highway 389 across from Sarasota Avenue, parcel ID number 11823-012-000, as more particularly described herein, pursuant to Florida statutes section 171.052, amending the boundaries of the city to exclude said land, repealing all ordinances or parts of the ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Excuse me, this is just the reading. Never mind. Do we need action there for? It's the second reading.
This
but-
is the second reading. Need to be action to adopt the second reading.
Okay. I was thinking it was going to be further into the meeting. I'm sorry.
No, ma'am.
Okay, apologize to the commission. We do need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the board?
Yes, Mayor, other than I'm sad that we're losing the property, but I understand the developers' rights to develop, and it's a sad state that we're not being able to provide water and sewer. And I think that maybe in the future, we need to look at other parcels that we don't provide to see if we can get water and sewer, so we don't have this situation before us again. But other than that, that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion from the board? Any from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Brad Yunt, 210 Lakeview Terrace, and I assume that this property requested to be annexed at some point. Is that the case?
Do you know the answer to that question, Ms. Richard? Did they request at some earlier date to be annexed? I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Young. I apologize.
Not recently, not in recent years. When we look at the maps, the land use that it has came into being at the time when we very first put the land use map together, when we were required by the state to have land use, which was some time ago. So I'm not sure how it got into the city, but it was some time ago, and I don't believe it was this owner.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I was asking the question because normally when you get annexed into the city, you're expected to get services, and you get a fee that you have to pay to connect to those city services. And when the services are not connected, I'm suspecting maybe the person didn't want to pay. And it's like you kill your parents and then you want to throw yourself on the mercy of the court because you're an orphan.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, at this point, we've had a motion and a second. Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldrich?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so it stands approved. New business, item number 10, discussion and approval of resolution 2019-08-293, amending the rates and charges for water, and our acting city manager has this report. And the resolution, yes, thank you.
A resolution amending rates and charges for residential and commercial water system, providing for an effective date. Mayor, as we know, last commission meeting, we did have a workshop where Stantec stood before us and talked about the rates. And one of the things with this was that they recommended a 4.50 increase. From looking at a budget and preparing for a budget, we know that just doing an estimation, we'll add about $180,000 to our water fund. This will also just help us in terms of helping along those capital improvements. And so the rates have been recommended by Stantec, but the commission will decide whether or not we want to move those rates up a little bit. That will be, you have in your packets as well. The original base rate is 4701. That will take the rate up just a little bit, and I think that rate will be 4784. That is just your base rate.
Okay. And did you have the resolution? You read the resolution. Thank you so much. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second regarding amending the rates and charges for water. This resolution has been read. Is there any discussion or questions from the commission?
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, you may.
I realize the necessity of possibly raising the rates, but I feel that the timing is bad. Bad for the residents. We have people here talking about how they're trying to get back in their homes and get renovated and such. And I think we should take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tender. Anyone else from the board wish to make a comment or a question?
Yes, Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
I would just say that no one likes discussing raising any rates ever. I certainly don't like it no more than anyone else does. I have to pay the increases just like everyone else. But on the flip side, it's kind of like when you're in your home and things are getting tight. There's two ways to handle that situation. You cut your spending or you increase your income. And in this case, I think we have to increase our income because there's so many projects we can't necessarily cut our spending. So just something to keep in mind, keep your tomatoes. We don't like it either, but it's sometimes a necessity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the board who wished to comment? I would also like to comment. I had a conversation with City Manager about this issue, and I concur with Commissioner Tender that this is a difficult time, even though it sounds like a small amount of money in the general run of things. When you add to each of the rates, then it becomes a little more difficult to manage, especially for those who are on a fixed income or those who've lost their jobs, those who are trying to rebuild. And so with the realization that if we do not vote for an increase now, I would anticipate that we would probably have to do that a year from now or possibly 2 years from now. But I concur with Commissioner Tender that the timing is not good. It's almost like being kicked when you're down. And I will say that I feel very confident of the financial position of the city right now. We are moving along very well with the FEMA reimbursements. Despite the fact you may not have heard it in the news, Lynn Haven has received the largest reimbursements of any entity at this point, and we're doing very well. We have entered into a bond agreement. We also have our insurance money coming in, and if this were a huge amount of money that were going to come into the city, I would be very, very supportive of it. But because of the fact that in the grand scheme of things, the small amount of money that this is going to raise and then put a burden on the households, I have very strong reservations about doing it right now. But with great respect for those on the board who feel that it is the thing to do right now, I see their point of view as well, but that's mine.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Ms. Gaynor, if I'm reading this right, we're looking at a base rate change of 83 cents, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then to clarify a little further, it's a base rate for the water, but we're going to be looking at several entities. And even when you add it all together, when it comes to a certain amount, even when it starts getting close to $6 or $7 or whatever it is a month, I remember when I was in my 20s and I was a teacher that sometimes the $7 or $8 that was left is what bought my tank of gas to go to the next week of work. So it is important to people when they're really having a hard time financially. So I would just say that.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
And not that I'm trying to correct you, but Ms. Gaynor, the base rate is water, sewer, stormwater, and garbage, correct? So the change is 83 cents for all four of those?
When you add the garbage service, the water, the sewer, and the stormwater, your base rate becomes $47.84. That would be the new proposed rate.
And the current is 47.01.
That is correct.
So the change would be 83 cents for all four of the services from the base rate. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I would just like to add on to what I said just a little bit earlier. I still hear, and I think we all do, we hear stories every day from our residents who are still waiting on insurance money. They're not living in their homes. They're living with other people. I mean, and they don't have any money left. They don't have savings like those who are wealthy. They don't have money just sitting around where they can go out and have all the repairs made and just happily wait for their insurance money. So I just feel like you worded it very well, Mayor. It's like kicking people when they're down. And thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion from the board? Any from the public? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we've got three things going on here, so it's 83 cents more for that. How much will it be more for the wastewater, and how much more will it be for the solid waste collection? And how much more is it going to be for the stormwater utility fees? When we add all those up, what will be the final increase in these rates?
Go ahead. Okay. The garbage rate stays the same, $24.86. That's your first one. Your water rate will change. It will go from $9.43 to $9.85. Your sewer rate is now $9.11. It will go from $9.11 to $9.52, and then your stormwater rate will remain the same. So really, the only two rates that are changing are your water and sewer.
Any other comments from the public? There appear to be none. Now I forgot if we did a motion already. Yes, we did. Thank you. We've had a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Parno?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
No.
Mayor Anderson?
No. The motion does pass. Thank you. It's approved.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, just as a point of reference, if we could have a motion for adoption of the content of the resolution and reading, therefore we would vote. If approved as in this case, then Ms. Gaynor would read the header on the resolution after the vote, because part of the vote would include approval for that reading. So we're doing the reading first. We need to do it after the vote.
Okay. Why do we do it afterwards? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Same way with your ordinances and resolutions.
Right.
If with the second reading, or the first reading of a resolution, you would call for a motion to adopt and then read the resolution.
Okay.
And if that is approved, then the commission would have to.
So this vote that we just made is the approval to adopt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and now we need a motion to read the resolution?
You can do it all as one motion, but I would recommend that Ms. Gaynor read the header for this resolution, the resolution number, the header, and then for the next one, if there's sufficient votes on the commission for adoption of the next resolution, then she would, after the full vote of the commission, if it's approved, she would read the header for the resolution.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead. Sure.
A resolution amending rates and charges for residential and commercial water system, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. So we're good now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. I can find my agenda. To item number 11, which is discussion and approval of Resolution 2019-08-294, amending the rates and charges for wastewater. So we should wait to read the resolution at the end?
Assuming that the commission votes to approve it. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you so much. Is there a motion for discussion and approval of Resolution 2019-08-294? There's been a motion,
Second for the purpose of discussion.
a motion and a second. And we have a report from our acting city manager.
Again, Mayor, this is the sewer portion, the wastewater, and the sewer portion, of course, will also go up 4.5%. The sewer current rate is $9.11. It'll go up to $9.52.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the board?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes,
this rate is included in the 83 cents that we were talking about in the prior motion.
That is correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
are there any other questions or discussion? There appear to be none. Any from the public? There appear to be none. Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
No.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
No. The motion is carried and approved, and so we will now read the resolution at the end.
A resolution amending rates and charges for residential and commercial wastewater system, providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for approval? Or a
So moved.
motion for discussion and approval? I apologize.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions from the board? There appear to be none. Any discussion or questions from the public? And I see none. Ms. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
No.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
No. And the motion stands approved, and if we could read the resolution, please. Thank you. Pardon me? We do go to the next one. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So discussion and approval of Resolution 2019-08-296, revising the city's established stormwater utility fees.
Thank you.
Did I read?
13.
13? Okay.
Don't confuse me more.
Getting confused.
A resolution amending the rate structure for residential and commercial solid waste collection, providing an effective date.
Oh, so we are on 12.
It's 12, right?
That's 12.
12.
Okay, we really can count up here. Commissioner Aldridge is telling me I'm on one number, and the attorney is looking at me like I've done something wrong. And
12, yes.
we are on item number 12, public. You may turn off all the cameras at this point. Item number 12, thank you. Discussion and approval of Resolution 2019-08-295, amending the rate structure for solid waste collection. Now, Mr. Albritton, do we read the resolution before or after? Would you please clarify?
It would be after the vote, assuming the vote's in the affirmative.
you.
The reason is that the resolution is read after, is it's a proclamation of the city. So if
I get
there's
that
not
part. I
sufficient
just
votes,
thought
then-
we already did that. Okay, here we go.
And you
Thank
can make the reading and the approval all in one motion.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Gaynor? Yes, ma'am. You can say sorry if you're not. Okay.
Mayor, as I said before, the water and the sewer rates are the only ones that are going up. The stormwater rate is not going up, or the garbage service is not going up as well.
Thank you. Is there a motion for discussion and approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? There appears to be none. Is there any from the public? And there appears to be none. Now we're calling the roll, correct? Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
No.
Mayor Anderson.
No. And so the motion stands approved.
Yes.
And now we would have a reading of the resolution.
Is anyone else confused by this other than the mayor? Raise your hand or hold up your green card. Thank you. Thank you so much. The green card that means yes. Thank you.
A resolution amending the rate structure for residential and commercial solid waste collection and providing an effective date.
Thank you. And now moving to item number 13, discussion and approval of Resolution 2019-08-296, revising the city's established stormwater utility fees. Ms. Gaynor.
Yes, ma'am. These rates have not changed. We are doing a stormwater study that we will be bringing before the commission beginning of next year. And here's the resolution. A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, revising the city's established.
Oh.
If the commission does not approve it, then there would be no reading. So the commission has to approve it, then a reading.
This is really different. It is very different. So is there any discussion? Is there a motion for discussion and approval? I'm sorry.
So moved. Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Now, is there any discussion or any questions?
Question, Mayor, if I may.
Please, Commissioner
This
Perno.
resolution about stormwater, it doesn't affect the increases of anything, correct?
Well, speaking cautiously, that is my understanding. Yes.
Okay.
You're
So
right.
this one doesn't affect any increase on a bill.
No, this does not affect any increase or decrease in the bill. Any further discussion? Is there any from the public? Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
No.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. And so this does stand approved.
Now Ms. Gaynor would read.
Thank you.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, revising the city's established stormwater utility fees, amending Appendix A of the Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances to include such revised fees and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. And in defense of the mayor's performance on the last four items, I will offer that my packet had become confused and out of order, so that could be some of the problems we were having. So now moving on to item number 14, this is discussion and approval of Panhandle Engineering's amended task order number 14477-19A to include the bidding of Kane Griffin Park restoration work in 4 divisions. And I will call on our acting city manager for a report, and also Chris Forehand of Panhandle Engineering is available tonight if anyone should have questions regarding this. Thank you.
Mayor, at the last meeting, we decided to go back and look at King Griffin Park and divide it up into several sections to bid it out. And so this is additional to what our city engineer, Panhandle Engineering, has already done. That means that we will have 4 separate bids, site work, electrical, splash pad, the construction. There will be 4 separate bids he will have to put together. He will have to bid those out, advertise, do all of the plans. And so this is an additional fee to make this work so that we can get some prices that are a little bit lower, and also advertise in some of the regional areas, maybe get some better pricing.
Thank you. And my understanding is our total proposed fee is $24,450,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Correct. Is there a motion for discussion and approval?
So moved.
Second.
So there's been a motion for discussion and possible approval. Is there any discussion or questions from the board regarding the task order?
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
In the task order, it doesn't stipulate that that Panhandle must advertise this regionally. I just want to make sure that we're very clear that this needs to go out at a minimum on a regional level. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I was wondering if the acting city manager can tell me what we've already paid Panhandle for this project on the first set of bids.
I think it was 108.
108,000?
Yes, ma'am. The task order, the original task order was for 108,000 roughly, but that was for bidding the job as one total big project. In this task order, you're asking me to break it out into 4 different projects, prepare 4 different bid specs, plans, advertise it to all these different regional locations, answer questions to 4 different sets of contractors, receive 4 bids, make 4 recommendations for award, oversee all that during construction. You got 4 contracts, 4 pay requests every month. So it's a lot more work than originally we anticipated.
Okay. So just so I understand, we haven't used up our 108,000 that
No,
we
ma'am,
initially
have-
paid you.
You have not. You have not.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris,
Any other questions from the board?
yes, Mayor. Chris, what's the, when we say regional, what's our radius? We talking 200 miles or? What
I
are
mean, we
looking
can go as far as you'd like, but I anticipate it'd be Dothan, Tallahassee, Pensacola. You know, we could go a little further north if you wanted to, maybe Montgomery or Birmingham or
Atlanta.
maybe a little further south, you know, maybe Jacksonville.
Perfect. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public or comments? There appear to be none. Ms. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Parno?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
No.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so it stands approved. Moving to item number 15, discussion and approval of the change order to the Tetra Tech Task Order number 1-2018-FRS Hurricane Michael Lynn Haven, extending the period of performance and expanding the scope of services. Ms. Gaynor, do you have a report on this item?
Yes, ma'am. And before I do, I would like to ask Jason Vickery if he'd come up. He's the representative from Tetra Tech. Tetra Tech has been working very closely with the city to help us with the reimbursements. They are with us any day, any time of night. I talk to them on weekends, at night, in the morning, just to make sure that we're getting the best usage out of our time and making sure that the city is getting the best reimbursements possible. They have been very, very good consultants to the city, and we know that there's still work to be done. We know that it's going to take a little further on in this reimbursement process. We're going to need their guidance on a couple other grants that we are pursuing, and they've helped us to come this far, and we feel like that there's definitely more money out there for us to get.
Thank you. Again, my name's Jason Vickery, and I do work for Tetra Tech, and we perform public assistance consulting services for the city of Lynn Haven. And first, I'd like to say that it's been an honor to be able to work for the city of Lynn Haven to support this community through Hurricane Michael. In October, it'll be a year. And Tetra Tech was on the ground 4 or 5 days after landfall, not only on what we call the financial recovery services side, which is where I reside, but you guys also know that the debris team for Tetra Tech was here in numbers and getting things cleaned up as well. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the dollars so far. So to date, submitted to FEMA on behalf of the city is $21.5 million. 10 million of that has been obligated, and using rough numbers, so $5 million have actually been paid out to FEMA to date. And so the way that works is part of one of the projects is that you get half that 10 million, and then you do additional validation, and you get the back end of that 5 million. So within a few months, hopefully, we're hoping maybe by the end of September, at least mid-October, the other half of that 5 million will come in. So we have $10 million in. By the end of the year, we're looking at projections. We'll have submitted up to hopefully around $30 million submitted to FEMA. And with that, under the FEMA's, what they call their management costs, city is eligible for reimbursement up to 5% of total obligated dollars. So what that would mean is if we've submitted $30 million to FEMA, out of that $30 million, the potential, can't guarantee it, but the potential is from a management cost, which would pay for professional services like myself, other bidding stuff the city does as well. I mean, they have helped us gather all of their, their forced account documents, contracts, invoice and stuff that we have to submit to FEMA to get reimbursement. Those are direct and indirect costs that up to 5% is reimbursable by FEMA. So we're doing about $1.5 million, roughly. Can't guarantee that you get all 5%, but around that $1.5 million mark, hopefully that's going to be coming back to the city by the end of the year. That's kind of our projections. And so what we do as a business is we try to balance those management costs with the professional services. So, I mean, it's public. So, I mean, Tetra Tech currently has a contract for plus or minus $1 million right now to provide professional engineering services to the city. We have presented a task order amendment to carry us through the end of this year for an additional $500,000, moving a total contract value to the plus or minus 1.5 million, which we keep in line with what we believe is going to be the 5% reimbursable cost at the end. So we would be love to stay on board. I mean, I'm not here all the time, but you guys have seen Andy Burns. Andy Burns is full-time here working with the city of Lynn Haven. We've been here, like I said, almost a year, and our goal with every applicant is to guide them through the entire grant process, all the way through closeout, maximize reimbursement, and hopefully through the process, pay for ourselves really. So my ask is that the board approves the task order amendment for a period of performance extension to the end of this year, December 31st, with an amended additional contract amount of around $500,000. You guys have any questions? Ask away.
Are there any questions from the board? There are no questions. Jason, I would like to commend you on everything that Tetra Tech has done here for the city of Lynn Haven, how you've guided us through this process. The intricacies of FEMA are almost, they're not able to be navigated by the normal human beings. Andy Burns, we can't say enough about him, how much he does for us every single day. So thank you very much.
Well, it's been an honor. It really has.
Thank you.
So we're here to help you guys rebuild.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the board?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions from the board? Any from the public? Yes, Mrs. Walker.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. On the financial recovery services page that was attached to the agenda, under request for additional funding, it asks, Tetra Tech is seeking an additional $516,276 to continue work until the end of 2019. Can you tell me how this figure is decided? Is it an hourly figure, or is it a weekly figure, or is it a per project figure? I just need to know how that figure.
They work on a percentage basis. I can let him explain it to you more fully of recovery, and then there's some other dynamics there. Jason, would you mind?
The contract is a mention not to exceed professional engineering services. It's based on hourly rates. So we have hourly rates with master service agreement with the city that has established rates for certain personnel, and that's how we establish what. So we build up the cost estimate based on what we feel like the level of leverage can be based on those established rates, and it came to, I know it's an odd number, but it came to 516.
So you have already figured the amount of hours that it will take of assistance to Lynn Haven to get us to the end of the year, and that's how you came up with 516,276?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Are there other questions from the public? There appear to be none. Ms. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, stands approved, and congratulations, and we're glad to have that extended. Moving on to item number 16, that's the discussion and possible approval of the roofing bid from Universal or Phoenix Construction. Ms. Gaynor, did you have a report for that?
Yes, Mayor, this is the second time we bid out the roofs. And the first time we had to reject all bids because we only had 2 bids and one of the bids was non-responsive. This second time around, we did have 2 proposals to come in. And those proposals we asked those proposals to come in as the lowest bidder. Those 2 proposals were Phoenix Construction and Universal. And they were given all of the structural damage information for the senior center, for service center, and for the garden club. As of today, we looked at all of the bids, those 2 bids that came in, and we know that Universal came in a little bit lower. Their total was $341,875. And Phoenix came in at $370,000. Originally, the proposal said the lowest bidder. We were a little concerned because with Universal, they did underbid on the senior center, and we know that the senior center had over 50% structural damage. And so but when we put this packet out, we did not have a response from Universal. Universal did come back to us and say that they transposed some numbers, but they would stand by the numbers that they gave us because we really thought it was a low bid, but they are going to stand by the low bid that they've given us for the senior center.
Okay. Is there a motion for discussion and possible approval of this roofing bid from either Universal or Phoenix?
So move.
Which one?
Well, it's discussion and possible approval, and so you can make a motion for whatever you like.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody say so moved. That's why I was asking what their motion was.
Motion to discuss.
So he's made a motion to discuss, not to approve at this point, okay? It's possible to make a motion for discussion purposes.
Okay, second.
Discussion now, is there anyone who would like to? I'm assuming Commissioner Aldridge is wishing to discuss.
Yes, yes, I am. I think that, again, I agree with the low bid aspect that we have on this. As we know, money's always a big thing that we're looking at. So I think low bid, we need to stick with that low bid, but also want to, from the dais, tell, the owners of Universal that I think that's very respectable to honor the numbers that you put in. I've done that in business myself where you mess up and then the customer places an order and you go, uh-oh, I'm not making much here. But it's just decency, in my opinion, something that's lost today, to honor what you say you did, or what you say you would do. So I'm thankful for that. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the board?
Yes, Mayor, if I may. I'm
Please.
looking at the sheet and I'm a bit confused. Underneath that, it says alternative bid. Can somebody tell me what that entails?
Eric.
Yes, alternative bid is thicker gauge metal. It's 24 gauge. It matched the metal that's on the amphitheater at the park. So we had a base bid of 26 gauge and an alternate 24.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may?
Please.
Mr. Pitts? Am I allowed to ask him a question, or I need to direct it to you?
No, you can ask him a
Okay.
question.
Could you explain, the advantage? We're only talking a $30,000 difference, but could you explain the advantage to going with 24 gauge over 26 gauge? Is there a related, obviously probably longevity of the roof, but does it have a better hurricane, rating or anything like that?
The wind load, or the rating on it is higher on the 24 gauge, considerably higher, honestly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the board?
Ms. Mayor, if I may, the total has a huge disparity in it of almost $300,000. Are these exactly the same? I
do agree with you, Pat, on the 2 bids here, that there's considerably difference in the alternate versus the base bid for the 2 different metal.
Wow.
We made a recommendation with the low bid for the base bid, knowing that 24 alternate was there. should you elect to go that route.
Are there other questions or discussion from the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Do we have any idea, do the bids come with any kind of time frame? Is one faster than the other, or?
Commissioner Tender, would you repeat? I didn't really hear what you said.
Do these quotes come with a time frame for completion?
Just per contract, we would enter, if you elect to go with a contract, there's a certain time frame for them to get bonds and insurance in place, material submittal is approved, but it's just a standard procedure as far as the contract goes.
Well, since you're the professional and I have no idea how long it takes to get a roof, I mean, are we talking months to do these 3 buildings, or a year, or?
I would say months. I don't think years, but, you know, metal should be available, but there's a lot of roofs being replaced, so, you know, but I would think months would be the longest time frame.
Go ahead, Commissioner Perno.
If I may, I was scrolling down and looking at the pictures of the senior center and the exposed rafters and the walls. Is it possible that these bids have disparity because there might be future problems with it being exposed to the air like that? I mean, are the walls okay? Are we talking about just a structural thing, or is it?
My understanding for the senior center, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's the most extensively damaged, and there is considerable structural damage that occurred, and so it will be a more difficult project and more detailed.
The structural report indicated that, Mr. Paterno, and basically the structural engineer, it was on the fence as 50% damage, 50% retrieval. So basically it's severely damaged, obviously. It's obvious if you drive by it. So it's your decision if you want to move forward with that. That's your call. The structural report, it is what it is. And we did them on each one of them. We categorize them as minimal, medium, and major damage. And that's why when the bid came in from Universal of having medium and major damage was kind of reversed, that was when we brought that attention and we got that clarification.
Are there other questions or concerns? Andy Burns with Tetra Tech.
Good evening. Hopefully I can add some clarification on the cost. The decision to upgrade to a metal seam roof in FEMA's terms is considered a cost-effective hazard mitigation method. So we're actively working with FEMA to get the cost to upgrade to this metal roof reimbursed by them. So
Okay.
Regardless of which contractor you decide to go with, we will still go forward in applying for these 406 funds through FEMA.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, please go ahead.
Andrew, would it make a difference if we went with a higher gauge metal to give you a better hurricane resistance? I mean, would that help your fight?
It depends what the initial cost estimate is. So when we submit these buildings that we're referring to FEMA, they're going to come up with the pre-disaster cost. So your total damage cost to restore those buildings to exactly how they were before the storm. That cost through the 406 program, you can get up to 100% of that cost. So let's say we cost it out, it's $300,000. That means you have an additional $300,000 that you can use for mitigation. So depending on where that number ends up being, maybe the 24 or the 26 could both fall in that window.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? At this point, we need a motion. We've only had a motion for discussion, so we need to go in a little different direction now.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we go with Universal Roofing on the alternative bid for the 24 gauge metal for a total of $371,350.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board?
Yes, Mayor, if I could just ask one more question.
Yes.
If I were purchasing this for my home, I would probably ask the contractor, why is there such a large difference? Is there anybody in the audience that works with either one of these companies that can explain that? Why there is such a huge difference?
If I may speak.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner
It all-
Aldridge.
It all depends on the profit margin that the person wants to put on their project. I mean, you know, the person that's doing the work has the discretion to decide whether they, you know, they want their margins 30, 40, 50, whatever. So there's always going to be disparities based on how much money the person wants to make. I hope that answers. That's just kind of a business answer.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Perna?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so it stands approved. We move on to item number 17. This is discussion of the Community Services Board responsibilities. This item was brought to the agenda by Commissioner Russell. Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. As I said in my commissioner's report, I attended the last Community Service Board meeting, and there was some discussion about their responsibilities. And obviously, we had the discussion up here at a prior commission meeting. It was my understanding that the previous city manager was going to set it up for the Community Service Board to take in applications for the budgeted money to help extracurricular activities. The way it was explained to me was the Community Service Board was going to take in the applications, look at them over, and make recommendations to this commission, for this commission to vote and make a decision on how to, if to give the money away and how to give the money away. The different members of the board have asked me again if that was something that they're going to be able to do. And I'm bringing it to this board for discussion to see if that's what the board wants to happen or if the board wants to leave it alone. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this board makes a decision, but the way I explained it was the way that I was told it was going to happen. And when I went out and asked for people to join that board, that's what I told them. So that's why they're expecting this. If it's not what we're going to do, then I'll go back and tell them that I was misinformed. But at any rate, it's the decision of this board, and that's why I brought it.
Are we discussing?
Is there a motion for discussion?
If we may discuss, yes. I'd like to make a
Well,
motion.
it actually just says discussion of, so.
Okay, so we
yes.
can discuss.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I know I had brought that up at a previous meeting regarding that they were awarded some sort of budget a budgeted amount in a previous meeting, but I don't believe it was a previous meeting. I believe it was a budget workshop.
It was.
Okay. And it was a year or so ago. It was in, I believe, 2017 or 2018.
It's been some time since that workshop. I don't know the exact date of
So
it.
would we be able to, and it is a line item on the budget, if not, and it was reduced in half because basically half the year expired and nothing was used on the line item, correct? I mean, it's been awarded. Are we going to put it into motion and it's for, is it, I don't know what it was intended for. I thought it was for school projects. Is that correct?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking for clarity on what it was originally
My
intended for.
understanding from that workshop, and it has been a while, the former city manager, Michael White, brought forward to the commission to discuss the possibility of allocating a certain amount of money for the Community Services Board to be able to allocate for various school activities. And it seemed as though the focus was on sports. I mean, I didn't hear them mention other activities besides sports. Maybe I misunderstood. But it was a workshop. There was no vote. There was nothing As far as a line item on the budget, the former city manager may have placed that there in anticipation of a vote, but there was never a vote to decide that. That is my recollection, and that's what I found in looking at documents, so. That's me. Somebody else wants to speak, they're welcome to.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, please go ahead.
I completely agree with you. I don't think this board ever took action on this issue. I do know that we did pass the budget with that line item. So all I'm asking is for clarification, but you're right.
Well, what does the line item actually say? I don't,
I'm not even.
yeah, I don't
100%
believe it
sure.
says Community Services Board for that item.
Is that what it says?
I said, I don't believe it does. I'm asking you what it says. And I see David Horton shaking his head no. And
It
he's,
says program and extracurricular activities, I think it's.
Yeah, Mayor.
okay,
Mayor, if I may?
sure.
It was my recollection from the discussion that it wasn't just for sports, that we had discussed having it for band, for any extracurricular activity to help the schools. So it wasn't just a line item for sports in general. And again, this is not, I'm not trying to spend the money. I'm just trying to give the board some direction, give them the application if they need it. This commission still, in my opinion, needs to be the one that votes to decide whether the money goes. My opinion now.
So the budgeted money would just be for them to function and come back to us if they were helping a school or an entity with extracurricular or sports activity.
Well, I would, not to be argumentative, but to correct you once again, there is no line item in the budget that says Community Services Board. There is no such line item. So I'm just not sure where the discussion's coming from. I know we had a workshop. I know that the former city manager, I don't ever like to mention someone who's not here to defend himself or speak, but I don't believe I'm incorrect. The former city manager basically was working with this board to try and get the commission to approve this line item so that this board had the discretion if Mosley High School or Mowat Middle School or Lynn Haven Elementary had a sports team that wanted to travel or they had some other activity that the city would give would award this money for this type of thing. And I think that the reason this didn't go any further is that I know my position was that as much as I love children in schools, I worked for Bay District Schools for over 30 years, I do not believe it's the responsibility of the taxpayers of Lynn Haven to fund extracurricular school activities. I believe that's the responsibility of the school board, who has the largest budget in the county, including the county commission. That was my position, and I'm assuming it must have been someone else's. I don't remember the discussion, but so, I mean, I'm not trying to dominate the discussion. The rest of you join in, but that's what I recall. We did not have a board meeting where we voted to approve this. We had a workshop where the topic was brought up. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me.
I'm just not sure, Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor, may I speak?
Sure.
I'm not sure why we left that line item in the budget if that wasn't the intent. Why didn't we take it out of the budget instead of voting on the budget with that item in it?
I don't know. Mr. Horton, would you tell me one more time what the line item says? What the sports extracurricular activities. I do know that.
There is a line there that says sports extracurricular for $25,000.
But then again, and this is just me, and this is the last thing I will say, and the rest of you can discuss this and decide what you wish. But there's no other board. The beautification board does not have a budget. The planning board does not have a budget. Boards are here to advise. They're not here to spend money or have a budget.
Again, Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
It's not, and it has never been my intent for this board to spend the money. It was for this board to funnel the applications, review the applications, and make recommendations for this board to decide how to spend the money.
But if I'm understanding correctly, they can't review applications for money if we don't say, we're saying this is your money to review applications to award, basically, is what you're saying. I mean, that's what we're saying.
But at the end of the day, ma'am, this board would say yes or no to give whether we're going to give the money or not. So at the end of the day, they bring an application to us, this board looks at it and goes, okay, we don't want to spend the money right now, so the answer is no.
Okay,
So-
I'm not going to argue my point anymore. I think I've made it. So if somebody else wants to argue the point or someone else wants to make a motion, there's
Mayor?
5 members of this commission. Commissioner Tender?
Yes, I'd just like to say, based on what Commissioner Russell just said, in order for this commission to vote on whether or not we're going to give a school, whatever, sports group or whatever, money, you have to go advertise to them that we have money to give to them. And therefore, do you see what I'm saying? We'd have to tell them we have money to give to them, or they would never apply. So it doesn't really matter if that group of people come and say, okay, would you approve $5,000 to go to a softball tournament or whatever? Like you said, it's not just sports, but, well, according to him, the line item says sports. But the point being, it seems kind of disappointing. We tell the kids, oh, yeah, we do this, but now we're going to see if your application is accepted or not.
Thank you. I'll ask for public commentary in just a moment as soon as the board finishes. Is there anyone else on the board that has a comment?
You know, Mayor,
Please go ahead, Commissioner
Just to try
Purnell.
to sum it up.
Sure.
So the community service or city services board is just like any other board. They could
Exactly.
come and if they wanted to spend money or do something, they bring it to the commission and we could vote on it.
Absolutely.
So there's no real need for any type of budget for that. Because the beautification board would do the same thing with a project and so forth and so on. So
I believe you're exactly correct.
we can just, would we move to remove that and move forward with the empowering, they have that power anyway to.
Well, we can't remove something we've already approved into the budget. There's a line item there for extracurricular activities. We're not obligated to spend it, but we don't have to, we can't remove it. Is that correct, Mr. Albritton?
My understanding of the conversation is that while there may be a line item, which I would prefer to see before we took any vote.
Me too.
But be that as it may, that there's a workshop expressing a desire to possibly use certain funds in furtherance of this advisory board, but there's never a vote on it. So I'm not sure at this point what would be voting to remove or add to. There's nothing to remove based off of my understanding of the facts, which is it was a workshop. There's no formal vote done. So as it stands now, they do not, this board does not have a quote unquote budget. Certainly they can make recommendations to the commission, or the commission can certainly take other action, but there's nothing to undo that I'm aware of based off the facts I've heard.
Thank you for that clarification. That was my understanding as well.
Mayor, may I speak?
Yes.
In light of your feelings toward wanting to see the budget and Mr. Albritton's concerns, I would like to make a motion that we table this discussion until the next commission meeting to give everybody time to review it and think about it.
Well, generally, if you're the commissioner who brings the recommendation, you would bring the information with you to present to the commission. So if at the next commission meeting, if we decide to table it, I would assume that you're going to bring this because the commission doesn't necessarily want to spend the time to go research what you're bringing to the board. So if you could bring the information and maybe have that to the city manager so that she could include it in the board packet for the rest of the board to consider, that would be, I believe, the better way to do it.
I'll be more than happy to, Mayor.
Thank you. So would you like to put that in a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Is there any from the public at this time?
I really wanted to say something as you were talking, and I am Sharon Sheffield, Lynn Haven resident, and I'm speaking now as a resident of Lynn Haven. I heard you say line item, I don't know anything about that, but I heard you say Lynn Haven Elementary School, Mowat Middle School, and Mosley High School. We have to remember that we have programs outside of the schools. And I served on the commission starting in 1986. And there were Lynn Haven Raiders who came and asked for money because they were champions here and they were going to represent us in other states. Lynn Haven. And they needed money for travel or to help with the hotel rooms or food or something. And that was the only thing that I remember. I don't know about line items, but I don't want y'all to forget that if they represent us, it puts us more so on the map. And I just want you to think about that as you're going into your discussions for this particular.
And I agree with you, Mayor, because the Raiders it is an extracurricular activity, as Mr. Horton alluded to, but yet they're not funded by the schools, which would leave them open for us to help them. And they have been part of the city for a very long time.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone else? So we have had a motion and discussion that we would table this, that Commissioner Russell's going to bring information back to us for the next meeting. And at this time, Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Parno?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so that is approved. And we're item number 18, adjournment. Thank you for attending, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the board.
Early, my fault.